Welcome to Arcs and Chords. So what we're going to do is, we just learned about how angles are related to chords and give you angle measure. We're not going to talk about how our chords here, remember those are the segments that are connected to 2 points on the circle, how they relate to the measure of arcs. So the first thing, if I have two chords and I know they are congruent, then I know their arcs here are also congruent. So let's try something. Here we have a circular piece of jade is hung from a chain by 2 wires around the stone. We know that JM is congruent to KL, which we already have marked in the diagram here. And I know KL is 90. So I'll go ahead and put over here that KL is 90. Well, then what that tells me, since that these chords are congruent, if I want to find JM, it is also the same measure. So it is also 90. So we're going to go on from there. So here we have a question. Circle W has congruent chords. So we have this chord here is congruent to this chord here. And I know RS is 85. So I want to know what is the measure of TV. So go ahead and choose if it's A, B, C, or D. So next, the opposite is also true. If you have two arcs that are congruent, then the chords are congruent. So if we see here, WX is marked congruent to ZY, which means that chord WX is congruent to chord ZY. So then think about, if I know those segments are congruent, we need to write an equation. So our equation then would be 7x minus 2 equals 5x plus 6. And now we just need to draw our wall and solve. So we, of course, would just have to subtract 5x from both sides. So that would give us 2x minus 2 equals 6. Then from there, add our 2 to both sides, which gives us 2x equals 8, and then divide by 2. So x equals 4. Let's double check that it just wanted the measure for x. So up here it does say to find WX. So which means, since x is 4, we need to take that and plug it in. So it'll be 7 times 4 minus 2. So 7 times 4 is 28 minus 2, so that would be 26. So the next thing that we want to talk about here is a diameter or a radius. So it says, if a diameter or radius of a circle is perpendicular to a chord, then it bisects the chord and its arc. So it's telling me here, if I have this right angle where they intersect, then that means it bisects, so it cuts this arc in half. So that means XB would be the same as BY, and it also cuts this chord in half. So XZ is the same as ZY. And it also says, well, that's what both of these say. So this one says the arc's cut in half, and this one says the chord is cut in half. So we're going to go ahead and use that to find some measures. So first thing, it has in circle G, DEF is 150, so I'll go ahead and write that there. And I want to find the measure of DE. So I have that my radius and a chord are perpendicular. So that tells me that it's going to cut this chord and this arc in half. So if I know the entire arc here is 150, to find DE, all I have to do is take 150 and divide by 2, which would then give me 75. So now we're going to use this in a different way because we have a right angle. Oh, actually, I want you to take a look at this one. We have in circle Z, WUX. So WUX equals 160. I want you to find UX. Okay, so now we're going to use this in a different drawing. And we see here that we have, it's a ceramic stepping stone. The diameter is AB, and it's 18 inches long. And we have a chord here that's EF, which then would be perpendicular, and we know that that is 8 inches long. It wants us to find how far it is from the center, which is C, to D. So what we have to do is I went ahead and redrew this down here, and I'm going to show you a couple of tricks. First things, what we're going to do is we're going to make this into a right triangle. So if you notice, this starts at the center and goes to the edge. So it told me here that the diameter is 18. So if any segment that goes from the center to the edge is the radius. So that means CE here is a radius, which would then have to be 9, which is half the 18. The other thing I need to use is it told me that chord EF is 8 inches long. So from E to F. Well, I learned that when the chord and the radius are perpendicular, the chord is cut in half. So if the chord is 8, that means from E to D here is 4. So now all I have to do is put an X on that CD. So we're just learning some extra segments that you can draw in. And now that we have a right triangle with no angle measures, we know we can use Pythagorean theorem. Of course, we have to know that our C, which is what this right angle points towards, now is 9. So start with the x squared plus 4 squared equals 9 squared. That would give us x squared plus 16 equals 81. Of course, subtract the 16. So we get x squared equals 65. And then don't forget to square root that x squared, or square root that 65, and we should get 8.1. And that is the length of CD. That one will take a little practice, but we'll do that in class. Last thing we need to talk about, in the same circle or in congruent circles, two chords are congruent if and only if they are equidistant from the center. So basically, if I know that this segment here is the same length as this segment, I know that this chord is the same length as this chord, which in turn would also tell me that the arcs are congruent. So we have a lot of congruent things. So let's look at our last example. In circle P, EF, so from E to F, equals GH, which equals 24. Basically, all I had to know was that the chords are congruent, which then in turn tells me that that segment and that segment is congruent. So from P to Q, it's the same as P to R. So to find PQ, I just need to write an equation and solve. So since these are equal, I can go ahead and write the equation 4x minus 3 equals 2x plus 3. Draw the wall and start solving. Subtract 2x from both sides. So we have 2x minus 3 equals 3. I add 3 to both sides. So 2x equals 6. And then divide by 2, which shows me x equals 3. Now again, remember it said find PQ, so this is only x. So if I want to find PQ, that was that 4x minus 3. So I need to plug in the 3, so 4 times 3 minus 3. So that'd be 12 minus 3, which would give us 9 for an answer for PQ. So again, remember in your assignment, don't just find x, you still have to plug it back in to find the length of these.